Hi, this is Maureen, and you're listening to the audio version of my novel Run. I hope you enjoy this Irish family saga, and thanks for listening.
Run is a work of fiction by Maureen. All rights are reserved. This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Having somewhere to go is home. Having someone to love is family. Having both is a blessing. Irish proverb. Episode 3. I walked into the country kitchen, the morning sun beaming through the hand-blown windows, to cast a prism on the opposite wall. I sure hoped there was a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. No matter how long I lived here, it never felt like home. The Burrows had always been kind, but that didn't change the fact that I was always looking through the old glass into a life I'd never have. The house had been built in 1830 and was beginning to show her age. It had been in the Burrows family all that time and was worth millions. It was also mortgaged to the hilt, but they would never sell. Hearts would break if it was ever taken away. A good possibility if the winds of fate didn't start blowing in a different direction. It had meant change for all of us. I had taken on more work as a track veterinarian at Churchill Downs because in the past 5 years the farm hadn't been able to afford a full-time veterinarian. "Good morning, Aunt Rose," I said. "Something smells good." Rose Kilpatrick had come to Burrows Farm 8 years ago when Max's father had had a stroke and needed round-the-clock care. In her day, Aunt Rose was as beautiful as my mother, her younger sister Bridget. Both young women had the most gorgeous red hair, fair skin, and a generous helping of freckles. They were feisty, funny, and independent at a time when most women did as they were told. I hadn't fallen far from their tree. My mother had died in childbirth with my brother when I was 5, and Aunt Rose had stepped in to raise us.
"I'm testing out a new recipe for Mickey. You know we always used to have his scones, and I miss the lad. It would be good to spoil him while he's home from the old country."
I picked up a scone from the baking sheet and dropped it as quickly, blowing on my fingers. She smirked at my greediness. "I miss him too," I said. "I just wish traveling wasn't so hard on him, and we could see him more often." I wrinkled my nose at the scones and their dark purple chunks. "You'd better be careful. You know Mickey goes crazy if you change the recipe." Mickey was a walking encyclopedia of all things thoroughbred on both sides of the pond. Since his verbal skills were limited, our father bonded with him over the racing form. It was an untraditional education, one that wreaked havoc once the mean kids discovered his talent and mocked him mercilessly. We had both been around horses all our lives. When Pops married Mum, he had to make an honest living, quick, and so began his love affair with horses. Trouble was, he liked to gamble on 'em, too. He was always losing at a poker game or the races, and it seemed that all these years later, nothing had changed. Aunt Rose handed me a spoonful of jam.
"Nonsense. Mickey will love the currants and cranberries. The Killarney strawberries weren't in season yet, and I couldn't find any dried or canned ones. What's wrong?"
"Nothing," I smiled, handing her back the spoon. "It's delicious, but I'd stick with the loganberry. One swap at a time."
"I'm not talking about jam. Bridie, Evelyn O'Malley, I can tell something's wrong."
I turned back to kiss her on the forehead. Aunt Rose was a tiny woman now, having lost at least 3 inches over the years. These days her deep red locks were the color of dishwater, and I felt a pang in my chest as I put my arms around her. It's nothing one of your scones can't fix, I lied. I have to find Max. We're headed into Churchill Downs soon. Along with Max, she was one of the few who could break me when she sniffed something amiss. Can I ask you something?
Of course.
Why did you do it? Give up your life to take care of everybody? You never really had a life of your own. The question seemed to take us both by surprise. Perhaps I was simply pondering my future with Mickey, now that the extended family had reared its ugly head.
Being with you two was a gift. You were my only sister's children. How could I have a moment's peace knowing I'd sent you lambs unto the wolves? If the travellers had gotten you, you would have been married off at 14 and beaten on your wedding night. And God only knows what Mickey would have endured.
Eyes moist, she gazed up at me intently.
Your father is a good man, but men don't raise children in Ireland. And Lord knows you did most of the work rearing Mickey when Nana took to bed. It was good your father sent you here when he did. You never would have had the life your mother wanted for you if you'd stayed. But Mickey was so little and had his routine. He was happier where he was.
Still, I said, it must have felt a bit like a life sentence.
Think with your heart, not your head. Family's the only thing that matters in this world.
Her eyes narrowed.
Why are you asking me about all this?
The truth was, I wanted to know more about our history with the travellers, but now wasn't the right time. I was just thinking about family, that's all.
Your father has forgiven you for trying to get custody of Mickey. It's time for you to let go too. 5 years is enough for bad blood between a father and daughter. Make peace for both your sakes.
I've got to go. I picked up a tray of scones, lemon curd and jam for the guys working down in the barn. An Irish grudge was like cancer, spreading silently, then lying in wait to strike you down. As the punk had said, blood was blood. The only entry into the Traveller clan was via birth, which meant the only way to escape them was death. The barn was humming with a rhythm of its own. No one had to tell people what to do. They knew their jobs and did them well. Aunt Rose sends her love, guys. I put the goodies on the counter and waved for Becky, already back from the bank. As soon as we were out of earshot, I stopped. Can you take a look over the schedule, I said. I want a member of the team with the horses 24 hours a day. If we have to hire extra staff, so be it. Security at Churchill Downs was impeccable, but I wasn't going to take any chances. Would you see if one of the guys could keep watch on the house tonight? Sure, Becky nodded. Anything else? Not right now. Just text me when you're ready. I'll help load the horses. I walked over to my office and opened the door to discover a tornado had hit. File drawers were on the floor, trophies were knocked over. The glass from my temper tantrum was nothing compared to this. Oh my God, he had gotten back in. But how? It was a typical traveler message. We can mess with you anytime, anywhere. I quickly picked up the documents and started to put them back in order when the office phone rang.
Bridie, it's Aunt Rose.
It took all my strength to be polite. Yes?
We're out of Loganberry jam.
Of course. I'll pick some up and send it with Mickey when he gets here. My eyes rolled in their sockets. My brother needed life to follow a certain order to feel safe. The wrong jam was a potential disaster of epic proportions. The flight from Dublin would be traumatic enough. Thankfully, they were flying in a private plane carrying Star Dancer, Lightning's half-brother and doppelganger. I thought of Pops and tried to embrace the moment. Aunt Rose was right. We had to put the past behind us. The future, however, was still waiting to unfold. This year, the Kentucky Derby would be a family affair. Pops had trained Lightning's half-brother since he was a foal and had 25% ownership share in the stallion. High expenses meant that shared horses had become more common than single owners. Rumor had it Pops had cleared a rather large gambling debt to Max's father by giving him stud rights to the champion bloodline. These fees were the bread and butter of thoroughbred farms and could be worth a fortune. I only hoped one day we could get a boon like Stormcat, the highest paid stud in the States. His owner received $500,000 for one live cover session, with no guarantee of success. Like older men, stallions produced offspring long after their prime, some for more than 20 years. The horses born were auctioned off for over $5 million, so it was a good business if you could choose the right horse. Lightning was that horse. I just knew it. I closed the blinds on my office door and locked it. The mess could wait. I needed to see my babies. Our stallion's official name was Native Star, but everyone called him Lightning. Just as fast as a bolt from the sky, he had all the best qualities of his ancestors. The speed of his famous great-great-grandfather, Grey Ghost, paired with the sturdy ankles of his great-grandmother, Evening Star. I opened the stall and was struck anew by his beauty. Jet black, with an impressionist white star on his forehead, he stood 16.2 hands tall and weighed 1,125 pounds. Only 3 years old, Lightning had a bright future. The odds makers and the racing press were throwing around Triple Crown predictions, claiming he might just be the horse to win the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes, all in the same year. American Pharoah took that crown in 2015 after a 37-year drought, but hope lived, and the staff stayed tight-lipped about such things. To tempt fate would bring bad luck. I picked up his feed bag. It was untouched, heavy. Shoving it back into place, I sent off a text to Becky. No need to panic. It could be anything. Lightning has feed left from last night. Can you come over? There was no point in trying to shout at her at the other end of the row, a furlong away. It was just too far. That was where Morning Rise was being housed, and we had to keep those two ponies apart, or we'd have a premature foal on our hands. In seconds, Becky appeared at my elbow. She must have just been around the corner. Lightning is off his feet, I said. It might just be from the commotion, but was anything else odd in his routine? No, we got a new supply of feed in, but the formula hasn't changed. I ran my hands over his belly, glad to find none of the deadly gas rumbling that could kill a racehorse in hours. I was at a loss for answers. Racehorses are the divas of the animal kingdom. The slightest deviation from routine left them riddled with anxiety. Keep a close eye on him and double-check the formula with Mr. Granger. No one else. We have been getting our horse mix from Granger's feed for the past 25 years, and I doubted that was the problem. Something far more insidious occurred to me. If that punk, as he was forever labeled in my mind, had gotten back into my office, had he managed to get back here and mess with Lightning too? The possibility was too sickening to bear for long, and Lightning seemed fine. I'll bring Morning Rise to the trailer. You can load Lightning. As I walked down Champion Road, Rise's stall, I reminisced on past winners that had graced our barn. Traditionally, the Kentucky Derby had been the stallion's race. colts and geldings running on the first Saturday in May. Locals preferred the fillies event on Friday, the Kentucky Oaks, being a lot less congested. Although times had changed and we now had the option of running the girls with the boys, only 39 fillies had jumped days since May 17, 1875, the day the first Kentucky Derby was run. Of these, only 10 took home the gold trophy. We were running one horse in each race this year, and both were leading in their fields, a qualified miracle for sure. 2 wins were better than 1. Our filly, Morning Rise, was as beautiful and as different from Lightning as night was to day. Rise was light, almost white in color to the untrained eye, a rare feature for any horse. Strong and sassy, she became shy in Lightning's presence, a change that often left me wondering why a woman could never stay herself in the presence of an attractive man. The very idea made me snort in annoyance. I opened the gate and ran my hands over her strong back, using the 2 most powerful tools a vet has: the ability to observe every detail and the intuition to discern what cannot be seen. She was just fine, thank God. And as we walked to the trailers, I couldn't help but be in awe of the powerful creatures we were blessed with, infused with such pure spiritual energy. It was only an hour-and-a-half drive to Louisville and Gate 5 of the famous Churchill Downs racetrack. It took a horse 3 years to get there and less than 2 minutes to make history. Run is an original work of fiction by Maureen. It is a registered work with the Writers Guild of America, and Maureen holds the sole rights to the copyright. This podcast is for your entertainment only, and all rights are reserved. This material may not be published, broadcast, rewritten, or redistributed in whole or in part without the express written permission of Maureen. All characters appearing in this work are fictitious. Any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental.